Welcome to the Data Room, where we share best practices and actionable tips on being a data-driven company, or as we call it, data first. If you're a B2B revenue leader looking to scale your growth stage business, come and join experienced CEO and tech founder Scott Stouffer in the Data Room. Welcome to another episode of the Data Room. I'm here with scaleMatters CEO and co-founder Scott Stouffer, as always. Today we're just going to touch on a lot of different challenges to face when you're a smaller or larger company, depending on your size. There are a lot of different challenges that you're facing, right? So if you're a company at the seed stage level, you're often still mastering product market fit. Whereas companies that are, well into raising their Series B, they're optimizing repeatable processes for customer acquisition. They figured out that product market fit. So even different departments like sales and marketing, they're not the same at those different stages, depending on how large your company is. And the same can be said for revenue operations, which is the focus of our conversation today. The challenges that RevOps solves differ based on your stage of the company. So let me say that again. The challenges that RevOps solves differ based on the stage of your company. So I love today, Scott, to talk about each of the kind of seed, Series A, Series B stages, and let's talk about how RevOps can differ. I know, Scott, you probably have some thoughts on these particular differences. So let's start with a seed stage company. How does RevOps help, and how do they do that?
So it's a good topic, first of all, because a lot of CEOs and senior revenue leaders aren't really sure kind of when to invest in RevOps and what exactly to invest in at different stages. So I think it's a very helpful topic. But before I jump just to seed, let's start with a little context, sure. Which is if you start with an understanding that different stages of funding represent different risk profiles of a business, then it can be useful to think about those risk profiles and how RevOps might help to mitigate them. And there isn't really a precise set of definitions for these various stages of risk, but broadly thinking, you can put them into these buckets. The first bucket is what I'll call, and you mentioned, product market fit, meaning do you have something that anyone would find valuable? And if so, are there enough of those people out there that you could build an interesting business around? The next risk bucket is around go-to-market, meaning have you figured out your ideal customer profile, how to message and position your offering to them, which strategies for sourcing these prospects are most effective, and what processes for moving prospects through the funnel are most efficient. For businesses with a recurring revenue model, I'd say there's an additional risk bucket around adoption, meaning once you've acquired a customer, do they use the product or service and find enough value in it that they stay a customer for a long time? The next risk bucket is scalability, which is to say, if you were to step on the gas by investing a lot more money, would the business grow proportional to the change in investment levels? And the final risk bucket is profitability, which simply is when you get to a certain scale, can you be wildly profitable? So again, there are 5 risk buckets which tend to align with different stages of funding. Product market risk, go-to-market execution risk, adoption risk for recurring revenue businesses, scalability risk, and profitability risk. So you asked specifically about RevOps value for seed stage companies. And my view is the single most important thing a seed stage company needs to accomplish in order to graduate or raise a Series A funding is to provide some legitimate proof of product market fit. I've said before that achieving product market fit is a series of iterations that basically rely on feedback from prospects and customers to help eventually converge kind of on an optimum state. The potential value of RevOps for seed stage businesses is to help automate and accelerate the feedback loop from customers and prospects, so that you can more rapidly iterate towards this optimum product market fit. When there's an inside sales motion, for example, this feedback loop can be automated by properly configuring conversation intelligence tools so that valuable prospect feedback is surfaced from sales call recordings. When there's maybe a product-led growth motion instead of an inside sales motion, the feedback loop can be automated by ensuring the product has usage measuring points and then syncing those measurement points back to a CRM or other venue where analytics can be performed. In either case, the role of RevOps is to help institutionalize, if you will, the collection and analysis of prospect and customer feedback so that revenue leaders are better informed to more quickly sort of tune the dials on their product market message fit.
Sure. I like those 5 risk buckets. That it's a nice framework to think of, type of stage and the risk bucket that you're associated with and that investment is associated with. Let's talk about, Series A after, seed stage. You're gaining a little bit of traction. You maybe nailed that product market fit. Now investors are looking a little more deeply under the hood and trying to figure out what's going on. So I'm assuming that RevOps is pretty critical to this stage. And do you agree? And how do you think that RevOps can help that company grow?
Sure. Yeah. RevOps at Series A is absolutely critical. And unfortunately, there tends to be a very big disconnect here. In other words, Series A companies tend to invest minimal amounts in RevOps at this stage. Yet the strategic value of RevOps at this stage could actually mean the difference between survival or not. Sure. And this disconnect is most pronounced when there are first-time founders or maybe a technical founder or CEO who's not particularly experienced at go-to-market issues. So what we see is less experienced CEOs tend to prioritize hiring of salespeople instead of making the necessary top-of-funnel and RevOps investments, which are actually required to make those salespeople effective. So the most important thing to prove as a Series A business is that you have an effective go-to-market engine. And what that means is that you have established a repeatable approach to accessing prospects who are in your ICP and then moving those prospects through the funnel to become customers. And among kind of go-to-market thought leaders that are out there, it's generally understood nowadays that it's very difficult to quickly establish an effective go-to-market engine without leveraging the benefits of a RevOps function. So intentional RevOps is required to ensure that any sales and marketing tech tools are properly implemented so that you can accelerate the efforts of the sales and marketing teams. And what I mean by intentional is we're talking about people that think through what is the best architectural design to connect these various pieces together. How do we best configure them so that they both produce the type of information we're looking for, but actually remove friction from the process that the sales team or the marketing team has to go through. Too often, we see in Series A companies that they've bought a number of tools for their sales and marketing team, but they've really bungled the implementations because they really don't have the experts doing the work. And then these tech stacks become inhibitors to productivity rather than accelerators. Getting the tech stack implementation right is also essential to start building a go-to-market data foundation that can help provide actionable insights in the future. RevOps, another way it's important at Series A. It's crucial at this stage to accelerate the fine-tuning of your ICP, ideal customer profile, and your messaging to that ICP, which you can do leveraging voice of prospect data. RevOps done right plays a very important role in deeply understanding competitive dynamics and measuring the effects of different competitive positioning initiatives to increase win rate. RevOps is also crucial in quickly understanding which strategies for sourcing prospects are most effective at bringing in prospects in the ICP. Great RevOps is also paramount to surfacing insights on why different salespeople or SDRs are performing differently and what to do to raise the productivity of the underperformers. These are all critical operational benefits of RevOps that accelerate a company's ability to build an effective go-to-market engine. But there's also another subtle benefit to RevOps that goes beyond the obvious operational benefits, and that is the cultural benefit of professionalizing the way business is done. RevOps creates a go-to-market data framework that allows the leadership team to manage with a level of precision that isn't otherwise possible. Operationally, it yields a more effective go-to-market engine. But culturally, it yields a management team that clearly is in touch with the details of how their business operates and understands which dials to turn and which levers to push. This cultural attribute gives great confidence to prospective investors and generally makes it much easier to raise money and achieve attractive valuations, because investors don't view the management team then as a significant risk, like they do when leaders don't have much data available to them and are really just guessing.
That's a good point, that not only does RevOps help you bring that operational efficiency, but that cultural component of it, that's kind of, not said and kind of underappreciated, I think, for investors to kind of look at and go, okay, this is a professional business that knows what they're doing and what they need to do to grow. That totally makes sense to how RevOps can help those Series A companies. And it's surprising to hear that a lot of people are, maybe not a lot of people, but a good number of businesses are, throwing people at the problem instead of maybe setting that RevOps foundation and that go-to-market foundation that you talked about. So if you're...
Well, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but it's mostly just because they aren't aware, right? Yeah. Again, somewhat goes back to the first-time founders or non-sales and marketing founders. They potentially don't know what they don't know, and therefore don't make the investments early enough that they should in building out this RevOps function.
Absolutely. If you're a first-time founder, technical founder, take that in mind, that RevOps is always better to invest in early than later when you need to be. So if you're, RevOps helps those seed-stage companies, they dial in that product market fit. Then you move into Series A companies where they're now, establishing that go-to-market engine. So let's talk about Series B stage companies and even beyond that. How does RevOps now help these kind of larger companies?
Sure. So once you've gotten through Series A, there's a general assumption that, one, you provide something that adds real value to customers. Two, there are enough of these potential customers out there that you can build an interesting business around. And three, you've found a somewhat effective and repeatable way to actually find these prospective customers and turn them into actual customers. From this point forward, let's call it Series B and beyond, it's really about how fast can you grow, and if you do get to scale, how profitable can you be? In other words, it's about scalability and efficiency. And RevOps is fundamental to maximizing scalability and efficiency. Mostly because of the go-to-market data infrastructure that RevOps produces. The enemy of scalability and efficiency is friction. Mm-hmm. And to be really good at eliminating friction, companies absolutely must have a very powerful go-to-market data infrastructure that helps to precisely identify where the friction exists. Senior revenue leaders need to know which of their strategies for sourcing prospects are more effective or less effective at driving revenue, so that they can focus their investments around those that are more effective. They need to know which strategies are scalable, so they don't overinvest in strategies that aren't very scalable. You can have an effective strategy that isn't very scalable, and all that means is at a certain level of investment, it's fairly productive. If you put a lot more money in it, it doesn't necessarily get any more productive, so it's not very scalable. The revenue leaders need to know at a detailed level precisely what is trending from a competitive perspective, and if those trends are increasing friction for the sales team so that they can make adjustments either in product or messaging to respond effectively. They need to have an efficient and repeatable process for recruiting, onboarding, ramping new reps. They need to know precisely where there are process breakdowns that are negatively impacting conversion rates. A couple examples might be, we've talked about these in other episodes, might be weak lead distribution mechanisms, or perhaps an ineffective demo request on the website. In essence, to have the level of detailed understanding of the go-to-market engine that's necessary to optimize, it requires an extremely robust data infrastructure and an ability to turn that data into actionable insights. And this is at the heart of RevOps and why you really can't accomplish scalability and efficiency without it. This is also why you actually never see a Series C or beyond company that doesn't have a significant investment in RevOps, because the investors are putting so much money to work at these stages that they expect the business to be managed with precision. Best-in-class Series B stage companies get this, and they prioritize RevOps to give their revenue leaders the tools they need to evolve the go-to-market engine from simply being effective to also being scalable and ultimately efficient. A common theme of these companies that get stuck at Series B is an underinvestment in the go-to-market infrastructure and the RevOps function in order to build and maintain that infrastructure. So they never turn early traction and a repeatable go-to-market engine into something that's really highly efficient and scalable.
I mean, you made it very clear how important RevOps is across the life cycle of a business. And I think we've shown like how the focus of RevOps changes depending on the stage that you're at. So it was a really clear walkthrough of, if you're at seed stage, focus on product market fit. If you're at Series A, now you're building that go-to-market engine, and B and beyond, you really need to know those levers that you want to step on so that you can propel that go-to-market engine forward and really become scalable, efficient, profitable, all those good things. So if you are interested in scaling up your revenue operations, I think this episode has shown how investing in it early is really critical. So a good first step toward that, no matter how large your company is evaluate what you're currently working with. So visit scalematters.com/assessment. We're doing a complimentary assessment for listeners of this podcast, walk you through your strengths and your weaknesses in your RevOps function, whether you have one or not. So that's scalematters.com/assessment. Scott, always a great conversation with you, and thanks for bringing these insights to the table. And we'll talk with you next time on the Data Room.
Thanks, Heather.